2023 Nigerian coup d'etat. On the 26th of July 2023, a coup d'etat occurred in the Republic of the Niger when the country's Presidential Guard detained President Mohamed Bazoum, and Presidential Guard Commander General Abdourahamane Tchiani proclaimed himself the leader of a new military junta, shortly after confirming the coup a success. The 26th of July 2023. Bazoum's detention. Early in the morning, the Nigerian presidency's Twitter account announced that presidential guards, commanded by General Abdourahamane Tchiani, engaged in an anti-republican demonstration and tried, in vain, to obtain the support of the other security forces. It also said that President Mohamed Bazoum and his family were well after reports emerged that he was being held in the presidential palace in the capital, Niamey. Interior Minister Hamidou Souli was also arrested and held in the palace, while roughly 20 members of the Presidential Guard were spotted outside later in the day. The coup was reportedly led by Tchiani, whom analysts said Bazoum had planned to relieve from his position. Sources close to Bazoum said that he had decided on Tchiani's dismissal at a cabinet meeting on the 24th of July as their relations had reportedly become strained. Bazoum's wife, Hadiza, and son, Salem, were detained with him at the presidential palace, while his daughters were in Paris at the time of the coup. Bazoum and his family were still in detention in mid-August 2023, reportedly with little food, water, or electricity. Military mobilization. In the morning, the palace and adjacent ministries were blocked off by military vehicles and palace staff were prevented from accessing their offices. Up to 400 civilian supporters of Bazoum tried to approach the palace, but were dispersed by the Presidential Guard with gunfire, leaving one injured. Elsewhere in Niamey, the situation was described as calm. The presidency also claimed that protests in support of Bazoum had occurred around the country's overseas diplomatic missions. In response to these events, Niger's armed forces surrounded the presidential palace in support of Bazoum. The army also issued a statement saying they had secured major strategic points in the country. The presidency stated that the army and the National Guard were ready to attack the Presidential Guard. The BBC also reported that loyalist forces had surrounded the state broadcaster ORTN. The U.S. Embassy warned against travel along Niamey's Boulevard de la République, where the presidential palace was located. Announcement of Bazoum's overthrow. In the evening, however, Air Force Colonel Major Amadou Abdourahamane went on state television channel Télé Sahel to claim that Bazoum had been removed from power and announced the formation of a National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland. Seated and flanked by 9 other officers wearing uniforms representing all the different branches of the security forces, Abdourahamane said the defense and security forces had decided to topple the regime due to the deteriorating security situation and bad governance. He also announced the dissolution of the country's constitution, the suspension of state institutions, the closure of the country's borders, and a nationwide curfew from 2200 until 5 o'clock local time, while warning against any foreign intervention. The curfew was later lifted on the 4th of August. One of the officers seen during the announcement was later identified as General Moussa Salau Barmou, the head of the country's special forces. The 27th of July 2023. Bazoum's response. In the morning, Bazoum tweeted that Nigerians who love democracy would see to it that hard-won gains will be safeguarded, indicating his refusal to step down from office. His foreign minister Hassoumi Massoudou told France 24 that the country's legal and legitimate power remained with the president and reiterated that Bazoum was in good condition and that not the entire army was involved. Massoudou also declared himself acting head of state and called on all Democrats to make this adventure fail. Despite being detained, Bazoum has not resigned and has been able to get in contact with world leaders and officials such as French President Emmanuel Macron, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, O Commissioner Moussa Faki, and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. However, a former advisor to Bazoum who had been in contact with him said that the military was trying to wear him down by surrounding his residence with armored military vehicles, chaining the access gates shut and cutting the electricity supply. Subsequent reports indicated that he has been suffering from bad health while in captivity. Military recognition of the junta, the leadership of the Nigerian Armed Forces, issued a statement signed by the Army Chief of Staff, General Abdou Siddikou Issa, declaring its support for the coup, citing the need to preserve the physical integrity of the president and his family and avoid a deadly confrontation that could create a bloodbath and affect the security of the population. In a television statement shortly after, Abdourahamane announced the suspension of all activities by political parties in the country until further notice. He also announced that the junta had issued a reprimand to France for violating the airspace closure after a military plane landed at an airbase. Throughout the day, Télé Sahel continually broadcast the announcement of the junta's establishment with a few breaks in programming. The junta revoked military cooperation agreements with France, which has between 1,000 and 1,500 troops in the country. A pro-coup demonstration took place with about 1,000 supporters of the junta flying Russian flags, voicing support for the Wagner Group, and throwing rocks at a passing politician's vehicle. The demonstrators also denounced the French presence and that of other foreign bases. Other demonstrators gathered outside the headquarters of Bazoum's PNDS Taraya party, with footage showing them stoning and setting fire to vehicles. They then subsequently ransacked and burned the premises, leading police to disperse them with tear gas. Demonstrations also occurred in front of the National Assembly. This prompted the Interior Ministry in the evening to ban on all demonstrations with immediate effect. Civil servants were also told to stay home. The 28th of July, 2023. General Abdourahamane Tchiani proclaimed himself as the president of the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland in an address on Télé Sahel. He said the coup was undertaken to avoid the gradual and inevitable demise of the country, and said that Bazoum had tried to hide the harsh reality of the country, which he called a pile of dead, displaced, humiliation and frustration. He also criticized the government's security strategy for its purported ineffectiveness and lack of collaboration with Mali and Burkina Faso, but did not give a timeline for a return to civilian rule. His position as de facto concurrent head of state was later confirmed by Colonel Abdourahamane, who accused officials of Bazoum's government of plotting against the new regime while sheltering in foreign embassies and warned of bloodshed if they pushed through. Aftermath. Disruption within Niger following the coup has continued, with demonstrations, censorship of broadcasts and interruptions to power supplies, as well as evacuations of foreign nationals. The situation eventually escalated into a serious international crisis that has led to threats of military intervention by ECOWAS and heightened tensions and military mobilization in Niger. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlog same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you for watching Intervlog.